Hey everybody, Craig Cottle, Director of Nature Reliance School. I'm always trying to find more and better ways to instruct those that come to our classes. So we're always striving to become better instructors at what it is that we teach, whether it's survival or tracking or land navigation, whatever it might be. And I was personally a student in a class recently, and the instructor taught a certain way that I would like to share with you today, and how I think this can benefit you as a prospective student of our school, Nature Reliance School, as well as basically any other instructional program that you might endeavor to get involved in. So where I picked this up was when I was a student in a class at Enhanced Tracking Applications, and the instructor was Cornelius Nash. And just a fine individual. Cornelius is a good instructor, good friend. He's just been a big supporter of everything we do at Nature Reliance School. And he took a very complex subject, and it's not important what it was. I'm going to give a review of that class later. He took a very complex subject and put it into these terms. And that is the idea of a sliding scale, meaning you can be hot, and I'll use this because it's simplistic. You can be hot on a certain issue and you can be cold, but quite frankly, you can be somewhere along the sliding scale as well. We all know that. You have hot water, you have cold water, but you also know that there's lukewarm and mildly cold in any number of ways that you can be along this scale. So what I want to do with you is that ever since he taught that, I've been thinking about a lot of subjects that we do and how to communicate what I wanted to communicate with you today, and I think this model is going to be a good way of sharing that information with you. So the first one I want to cover is one that comes up a lot and people talk about it, and I think a lot of people consider this on their own without me pointing it out. But it is risk versus reward. And here's what I mean by that, if you're not clear on this, is that any type of endeavor on survival, tracking, land navigation, bushcrafting, whatever it might be, you want to do some training, I think you should weigh the risk of you doing that with risk and reward. Because there's a certain amount of risk that you have to take. You have to use a knife, and that can be dangerous if you don't use it properly. Let's say you want to do a solo trip, like what we do is a lost man exercise, where we take people out and let them be lost. We supervise and let them do their thing as best they can in a survival situation. There's a certain amount of risk there that we take away. We come down this level of scale, because if we just throw some people to the wolves, put them out there in the cold, throw them in a river when it's 20 below zero, whatever, there's more risk than there is reward from that. If it's all reward, then basically all you're getting is accolades. So if you're going to a class and, for example, the instructor spends the vast majority of their time in lecture, then there might be a certain amount of reward with that, because hey, they're good at what they do, they're educated, they have a lot of knowledge and they're sharing it. But quite frankly, in a physical skill like survival or tracking, land navigation, whatever it might be, if all you're getting is reward, a certificate, a patch, then you're not taking any risk. You have to be somewhere along this scale that is not on either end for you to be safe and to get education, and listen to me closely to this, that you can retain. So if all you're doing is getting a reward because you're training with somebody that you admire, maybe a TV celebrity or something like that, or an author or something of that nature, and that's the only reason you're training with them, then that is your reward. You're not taking any risk whatsoever, and in that regard, you're probably not getting information that you can retain. Therefore, you need to find yourself somewhere along the scale, but not on either end. Now this next sliding scale goes hand in hand with the one before it, but it is practical versus theoretical. And here's how this plays out more often than not. More often than not, you have some social media keyboard commando warrior, whatever, who spends 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 posts a day on Facebook telling you about how to do things like tracking or survival methodology. Then you have on the other side the person who never comes to social media, never shares any information, is off living on the land and literally surviving or tracking or whatever it might be. Now this person obviously who spends more time is going to be one who can, for example, probably have better skills, okay? But they may not have the ability to share the information with others. They might not be a good instructor. They might be the best warrior in the world, That doesn't mean because you're some sniper super delta whatever, just because you can put those skills to use doesn't mean that you can share those skills with others. Just because you are a woods hippie that lives off the land, like one of the guys that has instructed me literally lives off the land every day. Speaking to his family the other day, he killed 200 squirrels last year for he and his family. That's one of the things that was their mainstay of their survival. He literally lives off the land, but there's no way in the world he could teach a group of people. So you have to have this sliding scale of instructor so that you know how to apply your own skills. So you need to spend a lot of time practicing skills. You need to spend a lot of time tracking. You need to spend a lot of time building fires and stuff of that nature. You need to do reading too. You need to hear theories and ideas from other people. If you're tied into only one instructor and you're not taking in books and YouTube videos from various instructors, and when you have the opportunity of time and money, you need to go hear other instructors teach as much as you can. But the goal is to be more on this side if you want to be able to apply those skills. Now you can be a talking head and you can use big words, that's fine. There's a time for that. But there is most often a time for skills that are hard skills like we've been describing, where you need to spend more time on this side of that scale, unless all you want to be known for is somebody who can talk the talk. Over here is where you're going to be able to walk the walk. I don't know who the first person that said this was, but the first person I heard say it was Cody Lundeen. He may have got it from somebody else, I don't really know. But he was talking about survival training in particular being on the scale of education and entertainment. And you know, he was saying that it's basically, TV survival is basically edutainment, it's a combination of the two. So as far as a class is concerned, like a class at Nature Reliance School, we tend to be way over here on this side of the education scale, meaning we have spent more time studying how to teach people than we have, well, no, I shouldn't say that. We spend as much time learning how to teach people as we have doing these skills. And what I mean by that is that if you're not physically doing skills, then you're not learning physical skills. If you, for a bow drill, for example, you can have somebody teach you on YouTube all day long, but if you're not out there cranking out fires, then you're not gonna learn how to do it. It's just impossible. So you need to be over here on this education level. What you also need to do is understand that there's a certain amount of entertainment that we all go through. And even at Nature Reliance School, we have downtime and we do entertaining things and have fun, and tell stories and all that sort of thing. But if you're only watching, and survival is big about this, if you're only watching Survival on Alone, which is a good show, or any of the other shows that are out there, Dual Survival, whatever it might be, then you're being mostly, in my opinion, you're being mostly entertained and not educated. That doesn't mean that you can't learn some things. You're definitely on this scale somewhere. But what I would recommend for people to do is to be more on the side of education than entertained. And to do that, you need to understand that from our perspective, you need about 15% of your learning is listening to people talk about things. 15% of your learning comes from watching people that know what they're doing things. And the bulk, the 70%, is you doing things. So as far as building fires, for example, I'm gonna show people how to build fires. I'm gonna talk about building fires, and then I'm gonna have people build fires in a survival class. That way they're way over here on this education scale. If we're way over here, let's say that percentage is reversed, and most of the time I lecture about the issue, then you're basically being entertained. You're listening to people talk about things, but you're not actually being educated. You're just listening, and anytime you just listen to people, like in a college lecture or something, you need to take that information and go out and apply it, and that's what we're going to come to next. All right, so this is a big one, and it seems like a small issue, but it's a pretty big issue, particularly in the world of tracking, and I'm going to address that very directly. I know that art is mostly subjective, and for example, is the Mona Lisa that's covered in human excrement, is that actually art? I understand that. I'm not here to debate that, because that is subjective, and some people think art should be objective and versus subjective and what have you. That's not what I'm here to address. What I'm here to address is science versus art. Here's an example for you. Tracking should be a science. What most people look at tracking and say that it is an art. And I'm not saying that there's no art, there's no distinct ability from a person to be born with the ability to track, or they have the personal characteristics that make them a better tracker that might put them on the artsy side. But from my perspective, science is where it's at when it comes to particularly tracking. And here's what I mean by that. And here's how unscrupulous instructors abuse this sliding scale tremendously to make money and to bolster their own egos, okay? Because in my interpretation of tracking, everything can be broken down to a science. You can look at a track, you can look at sign, you can look at clues, whatever it is that you want to call them, spore, whatever it might be, and break it down and realize that a princess thumb leaf, when somebody steps on it, does this. That's science, okay? Now, whether somebody can see that or not is maybe an artsy thing to consider. But here's what happens, is that in tracking, people make it more art than science. And here's why. Because this is mostly subjective. If they say that tracking is this and you disagree with them, then you can't disagree with them. They're right. And this is how a lot of very well-known trackers have become both wealthy and have huge schools of tracking, and I'm not really certain they can track at all. But what I do know is that they subject their student population to the art side of things rather than the science side of things. Because if it's an art, and I used to run into this all the time in martial arts circles, not my instructors in particular, but those that are in the community of martial arts, is that they say that their way is the only way and you should never train with anybody else and all that stuff. And this comes up a lot in tracking. He's like, my instructor's the best and he's the only one that can do tracking and he's known for all this and he's a consultant on movies and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't make you a tracker, okay? So if you can break tracking down into a science and actually share that information with others, then you're the type of person that can be an instructor of tracking or something of that nature. And I'm not saying I am, I'm just saying I spend a lot of time tracking and I spend a lot of time sharing information with people that track, okay? And if I can share it in such a way that it's a science, then they can get better without me, which is the problem with the guys that spend more time down here. Because down here, the only way you get better is you spend more time in their system or with them, in their presence, and that's just simply not true. So is there a sliding scale? Meaning, do you kind of have an artsy eye to be able to track properly? Yeah, but definitely tracking should be, in my opinion, down here on the science side of things rather than on the art side of things. So this next one builds off the last one as well, and I would call it the sliding scale of integrity versus dishonesty, okay? And this is what I mean by that. I would like for you to consider Nature Reliant School and the instructors of Nature Reliant School on this sliding scale as well. Take a look at our body of work. Take a look at the classes that we've taught that if you've attended, you've attended. The book that I put out, the second book that's coming out behind it, our YouTube videos, our Instagram, our Facebook post, and all the things that goes out from Nature Reliant School. And match it up on this scale. Have we been honest? Have we had integrity in what we're doing? There's been a number of things that we might put out, for example, that might be found out to be later as in our own experiences, what we've discovered, hey, that's wrong, you know. I put something out that I had a certain amount of experience on, and then I developed more experience or had more education and added to it, and I changed my opinion, then I'll put it out there that I was wrong and we'll correct it as best we can. This is how I think you should match up our school in any school that you might want to attend and take a look at, has their body of work had integrity? If you know that they have purposely done things and lied, how do you feel about that? Are you okay with it? And if you're okay with it, then you're going to be okay with being on this side of the sliding scale. I would prefer with the people that I train with, because I'm constantly training and learning and studying with others, I want to be on this side of the scale. I want to be as far down there as I possibly can with people that I train with, as well as the information I present, obviously. So integrity versus dishonesty. The reason I keep bringing these up, because most of these are completely mutually exclusive from one another. You can't really have great integrity and lie. The question is, can you lie at this point in your life and then have integrity later on? I would hope that we can all improve upon ourselves and have integrity and develop honesty, even if we've been dishonest in the past. And that way, I have mercy on others, and I'm not hammering people that have been dishonest in the past. But you've got to consider, if somebody's displayed a measure of dishonesty, How does that match up with what I'm going to teach you? Am I going to be honest with you while I'm teaching you? Or will I be okay with being dishonest? Hey, and this is the last one, so thank you for bearing with me on this. This has been a lengthy video compared to what we normally put out, but this information has been boiling around in my head for a long time, and when I saw this sliding scale in class, I knew this is the way I wanted to communicate it. And this one is humility versus audacity. You've probably noticed, if you're on the inside or you spend much time in this community of people, that I've probably danced around some of these topics because I prefer to be on the humility side of things rather than the audacious side of things. I'm not the type of person to call people out and call people by names. I like to put information out there and let people put their own thoughts into it and come to their own conclusions based upon what I can put out there for them. Here's what I mean by being audacious and being humble. And that is, as we teach as instructors, one of the ways that a good instructor of mine said it was this way. His way is not the way of doing things, it is a way. And that's how we approach the subject of everything that we cover at Nature Reliance School. We try to put information out there that is easily understood, easily retained. That's vital to us. We spend a lot of time learning how to put information out so it is retained, and we do so from a humble standpoint as much as we can. The more in your face that you see a lot of people, there is a time for that, okay? For example, my son's in the military right now, and we've trained a lot of military personnel. If his drill instructor was a real humble person, then he's not going to train him as a soldier. He's got to be strong and he's got to be in his face to get the work done, right? There's a time for that, and we do that too, okay? For example, in combatives class or self-defense class, me being a quiet little simple guy over here doesn't get the work done. I've got to be real strong. But for the most part, living our lives, the more humble we are, then the more conversational we can be with people and work with them. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't call people out ever. There's a time that you just call bull crap, and you just call people out on it. But from our perspective, you've got to look at your instructors, whether it's us or you want to attend another school, and you want to look at it from the perspective is, do you want somebody that's going to be in your face and be audacious and think that their way is the only way, which we all know is not true. But if you've got an instructor who is so audacious that their way is the only way, then in my opinion, you're in the wrong school. I would rather be somewhere down here on this scale, on the humility side of things. Hey, so that's it. The sliding scales of survival and tracking and outdoor adventure, whatever it is that you want to call it. Again, just consider these sliding scales as you determine how you want to proceed with your own training on your own without any help from us or any other instructor in the world. But particularly when you are looking at attending a school or watching a YouTube channel or involving yourself on an active blog or podcast or whatever it might be, picking up a book, for example, like Extreme Wilderness Survival, then check those scales out and see how they apply to how you feel as a person and how you want to receive instruction from someone else, because it's vital to your learning. Your learning is vital if you're going to go out and study something so important such as survival, because your life depends upon it. And so these sliding scales are going to be vital to you staying safe, spending more time outside, which we all know is healthy for us. And in that regard, we want you to come on, join in, learn together.